I'm Aaron Jones, and welcome to Inspire Magic. Hi, and welcome back to Inspire Magic. And today, I wanted to talk about performing in another language. Particularly, in my case, I perform in English and in Japanese. Since I've lived in Japan, I've lived in Japan for the last almost 11 years, more than 10 and a half years. And a little bit before that, I've been performing in both English and in Japanese. But it wasn't always easy to change my show from English to Japanese. And so I wanted to talk about the process about changing my show from the English version to the Japanese version. Now at first, and I recommend that this is not the best way, but this is what I did at first, is I took the show and what I had in English and I just changed it to Japanese. I just wrote it out in Japanese. This does not work. It works basically, but it's hard to connect with your audience because things are very different. Jokes don't translate well because what is funny in one language or one culture is not necessarily funny and interesting in another culture. So you have to kind of work that out yourself. It takes a long time to do that, especially if you're not really familiar with the culture. Now, living in Japan, it was easy at the beginning to start to figure out how to do this and how to figure out how to do my Japanese to work into the culture. Is I often watch a lot of Japanese television, particularly Japanese comedians, and how they interact and how they talk. And this is kind of helped me figure out how to say in Japanese. I also watch a lot of Japanese performers. Now, I didn't want to copy what they said or how they said, but what I learned is how to say the things when you're performing, because magic uses particularly different kind of vocabulary and a way of describing things. And so I learned a lot that way, that watching the native Japanese magicians performing, then I know how, example, for picking a card or stuff like that, and just cutting the cards, how to explain when you're talking about that kind of technical part, how to explain it. So that was very good. It's also very important, like I mentioned, to connect with your audience by using pop culture and news and history, especially if you're doing comedy, and a lot of my magic is comedy type based. So I need to know about the comedy. Now in Japanese, there's always trendy things going on, as you may know. And it's good to be aware of these so you can work some of these things into your show. One, it makes them appreciate you because you're not Japanese, you're a foreigner and kind of a novelty that sticks out, but that you understand or you know things about the culture that's going on in the culture. And they will respect you for that, and it breaks the ice and relaxes the show. So that's a very important tip I think you need to know, is really learn what is popular in the culture and how to use that in your performance in the new language to connect with your audience, especially if it's very ethnically different, especially like here in Japan. And because for me, it's easy to get a show that's novelty. I got a Canadian magician performing, but to make that connection is very important to make the magic stronger, to make a stronger connection with the audience, and of course, repeat bookings, the business part. And now, living here in the last 10 years, almost 11 years, the recent effects I create, of course, all originate in Japanese. Routines and stuff. I don't think about them in English anymore. I think about how I'm going to present it to a Japanese audience because that's how I do it. But I have a funny story from when I first started coming to Japan and performing. I had created one effect, Bill and Lemon. I love this effect, but I had never performed it in Canada. And I had created a routine for when I was in Japan to do the Bill and Lemon. And I was in Japan for 3 months in the summer. This was back maybe 2002 maybe, or 2001, I can't remember, one of those summers. And I had worked out the routine and did it in Japanese. And I performed it quite a bit. And then I was back in Canada. And in fact, the day after I came back to Canada, I did a show. And without thinking, I put the Bill and Lemon routine into my show. But of course, I had never performed this trick in English. And so I had the opposite effect. When I was performing it, I realized at that moment, I have never done this effect in English. And of course, I was able to get through it without any problem. But remember too as well, if you are setting a trick, performance, an effect, or even your whole show, and you're going from one language to another, don't forget to prepare, because it really messes your brain. It messes with my brain because the way you explain things, the way things are done, it's different in a different language, the way the expressions are used. And so you can't really translate in your head, because for me, at this point in Japanese, I don't translate anymore. I just, either Japanese comes in naturally and the Japanese goes out naturally. I don't have to translate. But when you haven't done something, you start to thinking, what did I say in Japanese? And then you're trying to translate that into English, and it's not very smooth. And so I recommend always prepare if you're going to do it in a different language. Prepare, prepare, prepare. And if you're going to do it multilingual, and sometimes in English and sometimes in Japanese or a different language, make sure you do prepare for this, because sometimes turning your brain, like I said, for me, sometimes doesn't turn as fast. I even have this when I'm talking English to English people. I will start speaking Japanese, or I'll speak English to a Japanese person. If I'm thinking without thinking, the switch doesn't happen always automatically. Anyways, there's a few hints in some of my experiences about performing in Japanese. And if you have any topics you want me to talk about here on Inspire Magic, please let me know. You can put the message in the comment. You can send me a message on Twitter at my own account at Aaron Jones Magic, or the Inspire Magic Twitter account, which is InspireMagic.com. And any other suggestions for things to talk about. And soon, hopefully, I'll have some performance type things on this part of the channel. And until next time, this has been Inspire Magic. Go and inspire others to do good magic. Bye-bye.